I didn't text my daughter until I turned into her street. Pulling up in 10. Don't be mad, Dad, ambush. I added a smiley I never use and hit send. It felt corny, but I wanted the reunion to be light, not loaded. After my wife died, I learned how quickly a normal afternoon can knife through you. Today was supposed to be simple. Show up, hug Lily, let the kids dogpile me, eat something too sweet, sleep on her lumpy couch, and pretend we never let distance calcify into habit. The cul-de-sac looked like a postcard someone forgot to mail, flag bunting from last month's barbecue, still tied to a mailbox, a scooter abandoned on its side, a chalk hopscotch grid half erased by last night's sprinkler cycle. But Lily's place had the wrong kind of silence. Grass gone long, porch light burned out, 2 Amazon boxes bleached pale on the steps like bones. I rang. Nothing. Rang again, held it longer. The way you lean on a question you don't want answered. Lily, it's Dad. My voice bounced back at me, an empty house echo. Her hydrangeas were browned at the edges. She used to text me photos when they popped. Look what finally lived. Little victories against Ohio clay. I stepped off the porch and peered through the living room window. Toys where you'd expect toys. A watercolor taped crooked to the wall. Ava's Galaxy. Star blobs and glitter like someone bottled June and dust on the TV stand. You can see neglect. It has a texture. The mailbox yawned. I told myself I wasn't snooping while I caught the envelopes that slid out. Utility bills, insurance mailers, a credit union flyer about refinancing your HELOC responsibly. There was a thick one from her health insurer, the kind that means either approval or a fight. The postmark dates stacked into a quiet indictment. 10 days. 12, 17, Mrs. Whitaker, the retiree across the street who knows the rhythm of everyone's garage door, was clipping daisies. You looking for Lily? She asked, like we were already mid-conversation. I'm her dad. Driving in from Dayton. I thought I'd surprise her. She hasn't been out. Not like her. The little ones have been at my place after school some days. Brandon's. Well, I don't want to gossip. She wanted to gossip. Say it. He's gone a lot. And when he is here, he's loud without saying much. She set down the clippers. You okay, mister? Carter. Daniel. Dan. My mouth was dry. I'm fine. I wasn't. My phone screen stayed bare, where Lily's bubbles should be. I called and got voicemail, dressed in her cheerful voice. I called again, then a third time, because repetition can feel like control when you don't have any. On the 4th try, the call picked up on the first ring. Lily, I said. Mr. Carter. A woman's voice. Calm. Professional. Calmer than anyone has a right to be when they're about to drop a building on your chest. This is Dr. Vivian Chen from Riverside Methodist. I have your daughter's phone. I sat on the top step because my knees did the math faster than my brain. Why do you have? Where is Lily? In our oncology intensive care unit. The words landed like a clean break. No flex. No give. No, I said. Because people say no to facts as if facts can be negotiated. I talked to her last month. She was tired. She said busy. Her chart lists a late-stage diagnosis. She's stable at the moment. She's been asking for you. Who authorized you to call me? I mean, I'm glad you did. I was engineering for footholds. Will, power of attorney, HIPAA, anything official to hold. I'm on her will as executor since her mother died. I don't know about medical power, Brandon. Her husband. The word felt bad in my mouth. I can't discuss other parties without consent, Dr. Chen said gently. I can confirm Lily listed you as an emergency contact. She's been under our care for several weeks. Several weeks. I looked at the bleached packages like they'd been counting. I'm coming now, I said. Text me the unit and your full name. I want everything documented. Written. I'm not leaving without paperwork. I understand. I'll alert the front desk. The call ended. The street hum came back like someone unmuted the world. My text to Lily still showed, delivered, which felt like a small, stupid kindness. I tried Brandon next, because anger seeks a target even when grief is the one driving. Straight to voicemail. His message was a brand statement, brisk, glib, a sales pitch for a man who sells himself. "Leave it," he said, the way men like him always do. "Brandon, it's Dan. Pick up. Where are the kids? Where are you?" I stopped before I said the rest. "What did you know? And when did you decide I didn't need to?" Back in my truck, I pulled the glove box and slid out the old leather folder I keep for everything I can't afford to lose since the day I learned you can. Birth certificates. Martha's death certificate. A one-page letter Lily signed 2 years ago when she asked me to be the backup on an emergency savings account, just in case bridges, Dad, not lifeboats. I'd added her as a secondary and written myself as temporary custodian in an email to the bank, copied to her. Written evidence, not paranoia. Insurance against a bad day. I took a photo of that letter and emailed it to myself with the subject line, "Lily documents hold." Then I did something I should have done months ago. I stopped making excuses for Brandon in my head. I had been the classic enabler at a polite distance, too nice, too forgiving, too willing to assume good faith from a man who treated responsibility like an optional subscription. A new text buzzed in. "Mrs. Whitaker. If you need me to keep Ava and Noah later, I can. I have their favorite popsicles. No questions asked. Thank you," I wrote. "I'll owe you forever." "You won't," she replied. "That's what neighbors are for." On the drive to Riverside, I didn't turn on the radio. I rehearsed boundaries out loud like a man practicing a language he should have been fluent in. No more assumptions. No more secrecy. No more "he's under stress." I would find Lily, sit with her, and build the receipts folder from minute one: names, dates, texts, bills, every decision in black and white. Because here's what grief taught me. You can't bargain with a storm, but you can bolt the doors and keep the lights on. And if someone's been gaslighting my daughter, if a narcissist has been rearranging her reality to make room for his comfort, then I'm done being agreeable. At the first red light, I typed one more message to Brandon that I didn't send yet. "Meet me at the hospital now, or don't. Either way, the bank will hear from me first." I put the phone face down and watched the signal change. Columbus traffic flowed around me, polite as ever. In my rear view, Lily's street got smaller, but the silence didn't. It came along for the ride. When I finally reached Riverside Methodist, the automatic doors sighed open like they were exhaling everyone else's bad news. I gave the woman at reception my name, my ID, my relationship to the patient. She looked up with a kind smile that made me want to disappear. "7th floor, oncology ICU," she said. "Room 7A. You can tell you're in the right place when everything smells like bleach and surrender." I passed the waiting room faces fixed on vending machines, eyes glazed from too much hope deferred. I'd spent 5 years grieving my wife in isolation, thinking I'd used up my lifetime quota of hospital air. Turns out grief doesn't respect quotas. When I stepped into 7A, I almost walked back out. Lily was there, of course, but she wasn't the version my brain had stored. Tubes everywhere, skin pale as notebook paper, eyes heavy but awake. She smiled anyway. "Hey, Dad," she whispered, like we were meeting for lunch, not under fluorescent lights. "Hey, sweetheart." I sat, because standing made my knees shake. "You didn't tell me. I didn't want to worry you," she said, that automatic apology baked into every woman who's ever been trained to minimize her pain. "You were still grieving, Mom, and I thought I could handle it." Handle it. The way she said it made me want to break something gently. "I'm here now," I said. "You don't have to handle anything alone." She nodded, eyes glistening. The heart monitor kept up its steady, beeping and unfeeling metronome marking the seconds we'd already lost. "How long have you been here?" "Couple of weeks," she said. "They found metastasis in March. Stage 4. It's been a lot." "Where are the kids?" "With Mrs. Whitaker mostly. Brandon drops them off when he's around." "It's not." That sentence was a trapdoor. "When he's around." I didn't push yet. "And where's Brandon now?" I asked softly. She tried to sound casual. "Business meetings. He said he'd be back this weekend." I watched her mouth form the words, but her eyes looked somewhere else, somewhere past the ceiling, maybe into the part of her life she still couldn't look at straight. Business meetings, I repeated. You believe that? Her face trembled for half a second. Then came the smile that lies tell for you. He's been stressed, Dad. Bills, kids, me. It's been hard on him too. I almost laughed, but it came out as a sigh. You're fighting for your life and worrying about his stress levels. That's textbook gaslighting, honey. She frowned slightly. He's not bad. Just complicated. No, he's toxic. Complicated is when someone forgets to take the trash out. Toxic is when someone makes you feel guilty for being sick. Her fingers found mine. Cold and bird-light. Don't start a war, Dad. I swallowed the heat in my throat. I'm not starting one. I'm noticing one that's already been happening around you. She looked toward the nightstand, where her phone sat plugged into a charger. It kept lighting up every few minutes with notifications, Instagram, banking alerts, texts she wasn't checking. You still using that joint account? I asked casually. Yeah. The backup one you helped set up. Brandon said it's easier to manage bills that way. My stomach tightened. Did you give him full access? He needed the login. For emergencies. Right. My jaw clicked shut. The last time a narcissist said for emergencies, it meant for whatever he decided was urgent to his ego. I didn't want to push her into panic. Not yet. Okay. We'll talk about that later. Her eyelids were getting heavy, but she fought to stay present. I didn't mean for it to get this bad, she whispered. I thought if I stayed positive, it would change things. You're not responsible for other people's cruelty, I said. Positive thinking doesn't cure cancer or narcissism. That got a tiny laugh. The sound was worth more than anything in my bank account. She reached toward the bedside drawer and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Can you keep this safe? I opened it, her advance directive, witnessed and signed, naming me as secondary decision-maker if Brandon was unavailable. The nurse had notarized it. A clear chain of authority. Legal. Clean. I wanted you to have it, she said. Just in case. I've got you, I said. Always. Her hand slipped back under the blanket, the IV line trembling slightly. The monitor beeped slower, steadier. I stayed until her breathing evened out. While she slept, I scrolled through her phone for something comforting to read to her later. Instead, I saw the pattern I dreaded. Brandon's name and missed calls from her side, unanswered. His messages short, transactional. Need insurance info. Pay daycare bill. Send me last invoice. Zero warmth. Then the newest notification blinked in Instagram. Brandon Hale. Official added a new story. I didn't tap it yet. Not while she was sleeping beside me. I just watched the phone screen glow, thinking about how monsters never look like monsters online. They look like men networking and clearing their heads. Its entry. I took out my notebook, an old habit from engineering days, and wrote one line under today's date. Start collecting evidence. Start drawing boundaries. No more enabling. Because something told me that whatever I'd find behind that glowing Instagram circle would be the start of a storm I'd already felt coming for miles. I reached over and brushed a strand of hair from her forehead, careful not to wake her. Rest easy, Lil, I whispered. Dad's here. And I'm done being polite. Lily was asleep when I finally opened his story. I know it sounds wrong scrolling through Instagram in an ICU, but grief doesn't wait for good timing. And curiosity can be a form of protection. The screen lit up my face like a confession booth. And there he was, Brandon Hale, my son-in-law, smiling wide enough to blind someone. First clip, a yacht slicing through Lake Erie under a cloudless sky, sunlight flashing off champagne flutes. Someone's manicured hand reached in with a toast. I froze the frame. The ring wasn't Lily's. Second clip, Brandon and two guys in designer polos shouting, "Freedom Weekend." Like the word freedom had ever been a burden to them. Third, him diving into the lake, water splashing over a caption. Sometimes you just need to get away from all the drama. Drama. That's what he called my daughter's cancer. I kept swiping, screenshot after screenshot, my pulse syncing with the beeping of Lily's heart monitor. Timestamp. 1 hour ago, while she was sleeping under fluorescent lights, tethered to IVs, he was drinking on a yacht I'd probably financed. I didn't yell, didn't throw the phone. I just sat there cataloging the evidence like a quiet accountant of betrayal. Years of being an engineer had trained me for this exact kind of rage, structured, methodical, backed by receipts. The last story had a geotag. Marina District, Cleveland. 90 minutes north. Close enough to reach if I'd wanted to. But I didn't need fists. I needed proof. I opened my banking app, the one that still showed the joint emergency account Lily and I had set up 2 years ago. She'd added Brandon, for convenience. I'd left it alone because trusting family is what polite people do before they learn better. The account balance used to sit steady around $130,000, a mix of my retirement leftovers and funds earmarked for Lily's kids. Now it was under $3,000. I scrolled through transactions, and my stomach tightened like it was reading a crime novel where the victim still didn't know she was dead. Marina del Rey yacht charters, $14,995. Ritz Cleveland, $2,800. Rodeo Drive Online, $3,400. Mercedes Service, $1,200. Each one spaced like a heartbeat in reverse. He wasn't just neglecting my daughter. He was living off her father's money to fund his midlife influencer fantasy. I grabbed a notepad from my bag and started copying the charges manually. Merchant name, amount, date, confirmation number. I wasn't writing a list. I was building a case. The more I wrote, the calmer I got. That's what happens when fury finds structure. Then, because pain likes company, my phone buzzed again. A message from him. Finally. Hey Pops. Heard you're in town. Don't make things worse. Lily doesn't need stress. Stress. That word again. Weaponized like it belonged to him. I typed back. You should come to the hospital. She's asking for you. Then, before hitting send, I took a deep breath and deleted it. He didn't deserve her voice, her forgiveness, or her final moments if it came to that. Instead, I opened my email and created a new folder titled Receipts. Every screenshot, every bank statement, every note went there. I backed it up to the cloud and printed a hard copy using the ICU's family printer. The volunteer at the desk gave me a side eye but didn't ask questions. I looked like the kind of man who'd just lost his patience for small talk. When I got back to the room, Lily stirred. You okay, Dad? I'm fine, I said, lying the way parents lie, calm tone, clenched jaw. Just handling a few things. In this node. She smiled faintly and drifted off again. The machine next to her beeped in time with my heartbeat. Both stubborn, both mechanical. I sat down and looked at the wooden jewelry box in my lap, the one I'd carved for her mother's ring. It was supposed to represent legacy. Now it looked like evidence. To a symbol of everything real that Brandon's fake lifestyle could never buy. That's when I realized this wasn't just about money or marriage. It was about boundaries, the invisible lines that protect good people from predators who call themselves family. I'd spent years being the nice guy, the forgiving father-in-law who didn't want to stir drama. But men like Brandon count on that softness. They thrive on your restraint. So I made myself a quiet promise right there in that sterile room. I would not lose another loved one to someone else's selfishness. By the time the night nurse came in to check Lily's vitals, my mind was already mapping next steps: bank verification, credit card cancellations, legal notifications. If Brandon wanted to play rich on borrowed power, he was about to learn what happens when the man funding the illusion pulls the plug. I looked out the window toward the city lights, each one flickering like a tiny moral test. My reflection in the glass looked older, harder. Not the kind of man who asked anymore, just the kind who acted. Enjoy your champagne while it lasts, I whispered to the dark. Tomorrow, the bill comes due. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of the hospital chair or the hum of machines, but because I couldn't stop replaying every dollar that had left that account. Each transaction felt like a slow leak in a boat I'd built for my daughter to survive on. Brandon wasn't just careless, he was deliberate. You don't accidentally rent a yacht. You don't accidentally drain 6 figures. By dawn, the city outside was quiet, the kind of Ohio gray that makes time feel suspended. I stared at the hospital window's reflection, an old man who'd finally run out of excuses. For years, I'd told myself that keeping the peace was the same as protecting my family. Turns out, I'd been an enabler in a cardigan. I brewed burnt coffee from the visitor's lounge and took out my notepad, the one filled with Brandon's spending trail. Today wasn't about rage anymore. It was about surgery. Precise, clean, no hesitation. I called First Ohio Bank's emergency line. "This is Daniel Carter," I said when the operator answered. "I need to revoke all authorized access on my accounts immediately." "Certainly, sir. Can I verify your identity?" She asked the usual questions. Last four of my social security, mother's maiden name, the color of my first car. I passed like a man sitting for confession. "I'm showing a joint access for a Brandon Hale," she said. "Since April of last year." "That's the one," I said. "Cut it. Every card, every auto payment, every digital key. Lock the account until I move the funds. Are you sure you want to proceed? This action can't be reversed. Neither can betrayal," I said quietly. "Do it." There was a pause on the line, the kind where people realize they've stepped into someone else's heartbreak. Then the clicking of keys began the sound of amputation. "I've revoked Mr. Hale's access," she said. "Remaining balance $127,000, transferring to your primary account. I also see 3 credit cards with his authorized user status. Would you like those closed? Close them. Freeze the accounts. Set fraud alerts if he tries anything with my information." "Yes, sir." "Processing now." The hold music came on something soft and instrumental, the kind that's supposed to calm you, but it only made the anger feel more sterile, more surgical. When she came back, her tone had changed. "All cards canceled. Notifications will be sent by email and SMS. Anything else I can help you with today?" "You already did," I said. "You just gave me my spine back." I hung up and refreshed my banking app. The numbers shifted. Balances gone from the joint account. Credit lines zeroed out. Brandon's entire illusion, his hotels, his cars, his precious yacht selfies, now floated on air. I imagined him the next morning, card in hand, grinning at some clerk as the machine blinked, declined. Maybe he'd try another card. Same result. Maybe he'd call customer service and argue, his voice sharp with entitlement. I hoped the hold music was the same as mine. Back in the ICU, Lily was still asleep, her breathing steady. I sat beside her, the weight of the last hour settling in. My chest didn't feel lighter exactly, but cleaner, like I'd finally drained the infection. I took out my phone and opened the receipts folder again, added the new screenshots. Account transfer confirmation, 5:42 a.m. Credit card termination notice, 5:47. Fraud alert email, 5:52. Each one a digital scalpel cut clean through the rot. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a victim of circumstance. I felt like a man reclaiming command of his own story. As I closed the folder, my screen lit up with an email from the bank confirming the changes. Then another from a security alert titled, "Unsuccessful login attempt, Brandon Hale." I smiled without joy. The system worked faster than karma, but not by much. Lily stirred in her sleep and whispered something I couldn't quite hear. I leaned closer. "Mom?" she murmured, half dreaming. "No, sweetheart," I said softly. "It's Dad. I'm right here." I brushed her hair back from her forehead and thought about all the times I'd stayed silent in the name of peace when Brandon interrupted her, when he bragged about taking care of things, when he convinced her she was too emotional. Silence had been my inheritance and my curse. But today, I'd spoken in the only language he respected, money. When I finally stood up, I didn't feel righteous or proud, just certain. Certainty is underrated. It's the clean hum that follows chaos. The click of a door you finally lock. I whispered to myself, first the money, then the truth. Because in America, justice doesn't start in court, it starts in the bank ledger. And for the first time in years, that ledger finally had my name, and only my name, on it. The next morning started with the sound of Lily's heart monitor, steady but thin, like a reminder not to forget why I was here. I was halfway through another terrible cup of hospital coffee when her phone lit up across the table. Brandon Hale. Incoming call. I froze. For a second, I almost answered out of habit, the reflex of a polite man trying to keep the peace. Then I remembered what peace had cost us. Lily stirred in bed. "Is that him?" she whispered. "Yeah." Her face went pale. Then something inside her hardened. "Put it on speaker." I did. "Hey, babe." Brandon's voice came through, bright and performative. "Finally awake? Listen, I had some issues with my cards last night. Whole system went crazy. I'm getting it fixed. Tell your dad not to freak out if he hears something. I'm right here, Brandon." My tone came out calm, surgical, silence. Then a nervous chuckle. "Dan, didn't realize you were in town. Look, there's a misunderstanding with the bank. It's being handled." "Wait, is that before or after the yacht charter cleared for $15,000? More silence. The kind that only liars know how to fill. "That was a business event," he said finally. "You wouldn't understand the pressure I'm under." "Pressure?" I repeated. "You mean the kind of pressure that comes from pretending to be successful while your wife fights for her life? Don't talk like that in front of her," he snapped. "You're going to stress her out." Lily's voice was barely above a whisper, but the words carried. "You already did that." He ignored her. "Dan, I know you're upset, but you don't get to control our finances. I'm her husband. I have rights. You had access." I said. "Past tense. I closed everything." "You're done. You can't do that." His voice cracked into something shrill and desperate. "That's illegal. You've overstepped boundaries. I'll file for divorce, full custody, everything. You'll regret this." I glanced at Lily. She was crying silently, but it wasn't the kind of crying that comes from fear. It was relief. She was finally hearing the mask drop. "Brandon," I said, "you threatened to take children away from their dying mother. I want you to think about how that sounds out loud." "Don't twist my words," he shouted. "You don't know what I'm dealing with. I'm under immense pressure." "There's that word again," I cut in. "Pressure, the anthem of every narcissist who refuses to look in a mirror." He tried to recover. "Look, I made mistakes, okay? I panicked. The spending, it was a phase. I was coping, I repeated. "With champagne?" His breathing was loud now, like the walls were closing in around him. "You can't just freeze me out. I'm entitled to." "Entitled," I said softly, almost to myself. "Yeah, that's the problem." Lily reached for my hand, her fingers trembling. "Dad," she whispered. "End it." I looked at the phone, at the name glowing on the screen like a wound. "Brandon," I said, "listen carefully. You walked away when she needed you most. You drained the savings I built for your children. You used my trust as your ATM. So no, you don't get to talk about rights anymore." "You can't just erase me," he shouted. "I'm her husband." "You abandoned your wife. You threatened your kids' security, and you lied about everything that mattered. You erased yourself." For a moment, I heard nothing but the hum of hospital machines. Then he tried one last move, the gaslighter's final card. "You're poisoning her against me. You've always hated me. This isn't about Lily. It's about you needing control." I laughed quietly. "Control? No. Accountability. That's what you're hearing. That's the sound of a man who finally ran out of other people to exploit." His tone shifted, less anger now, more panic. "Dan, please. Just give me a little money so I can come back, talk face to face. I'll fix it. I'll take care of her. I swear." Lily sat up a little, voice sharp despite the weakness. "You've done enough, Brandon." He hesitated. "Lily, baby." She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Don't baby me. You left me to die alone." He went silent. I waited 3 beats. "You heard her," I said. "If you ever contact her or the kids again, I'll make sure every screenshot, every bank record, every yacht photo finds its way to your employer, your friends, and the court. You won't be able to gaslight your way out of that. You wouldn't dare. Try me." Then I ended the call. For a few seconds, we both just stared at the phone, the silence thicker than before. Then Lily exhaled, a sound halfway between sob and laughter. "He finally showed you who he is," I said. I didn't want to believe it, she whispered. I kept making excuses. Thought if I stayed positive, he'd come back. Guess I was wrong. You weren't wrong, I told her. You were kind. And he mistook kindness for weakness. That's on him. She leaned back against the pillow, wiping her eyes. What happens now? Now, I said. We build the truth. Piece by piece. The receipts, the bank logs, everything. We make sure he never gets to rewrite this story. 8. For the first time since I'd walked into that hospital, she smiled, not out of happiness, but out of clarity. I think I can rest now, she said softly. Rest, I told her. Because tomorrow, I start the war he's been pretending didn't exist. By the next afternoon, Lily was more stable. The color had returned to her cheeks, faint but real, like the first sign of dawn after a storm that lasted too long. Dr. Chen said the chemo was holding, that the new treatment plan might buy her time. Weeks, maybe months. I didn't ask how many. Numbers stop meaning anything when someone you love is hooked up to a monitor. But I knew one thing. The emotional damage Brandon left behind wasn't just emotional anymore. It was financial, legal, and psychological, a full-spectrum disaster. And it needed a different kind of doctor. That's how I ended up meeting Rachel Ortiz, a family attorney recommended by the hospital social worker. She called me within an hour of my inquiry, her voice brisk, low, and steady. Mr. Carter, I don't do pity, she said, but I do results. If you can prove what he did, I can end his access to everything that matters. We met that evening at the hospital cafeteria. She walked in wearing jeans, a gray blazer, and that expression lawyers have when they've seen too much of humanity's small print. She didn't shake my hand right away. Instead, she pulled out her tablet and said, "Tell me everything. And don't edit yourself. I've heard worse." So I did. I laid it all out: the yacht photos, the bank transfers, the fake business meetings, the threats of custody. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she tapped her pen against the tablet, eyes sharp behind tortoiseshell glasses. You've got something most people never have when they walk into my office, she said. What's that? Receipts. Verifiable, time-stamped, digital proof. Screenshots, statements, correspondence. You've built me a case before I even filed one. I slid the folder across the table, the one I'd labeled receipts on my phone, and backed up 3 times. Every charge, every message, I said. I'm not letting him rewrite what happened. She flipped through the papers, her eyebrows lifting slightly. You even kept the metadata. Most men your age don't know what metadata is. I'm an engineer, I said. I like systems. Good, she replied, because the legal system is just one big malfunction until you learn how to rewire it. There was a pause between us, an unspoken recognition that this wasn't just a legal consultation. It was a war council. What's the first step? I asked. Immediate filing for emergency financial protection, she said. Freeze any shared assets, secure medical and parental rights for your daughter, and start drafting a custody protection clause in case he tries to play the victim card. She leaned back. I'll also request a forensic audit. If he misused funds, we'll catch it. If he falsified documents, we'll expose it. But we need to move fast before he moves money or manipulates sympathy. That's his specialty, I said. Gaslighting and guilt-tripping. She smiled slightly. Classic narcissist playbook. Love bomb, deplete, abandon, then twist the narrative. Seen it 1,000 times. Yeah, I muttered, and I let it happen. Her eyes softened, just a fraction. No, Mr. Carter, you didn't let it happen. You believed in decency. That's not a crime, it's just something toxic people exploit. Her words landed like a small act of mercy I didn't know I needed. Still, guilt had a grip on me. Was I enabling him all this time by staying quiet? I asked. By being too nice? Rachel folded her hands. Let me tell you something my first mentor told me, she said. Guilt is the leash abusers hold long after they leave the room. Cut it. You don't owe him guilt. You owe your daughter safety. I exhaled. You sound more like a therapist than a lawyer. Well, I've been both, unofficially, she said with a shrug. It's a hazard of the job. We went over signatures, drafted initial motions, and outlined the next 48 hours. Notification to the court, restraining orders, and verification of account closures. Every step was practical, logical justice translated into paperwork. Before she packed up, she looked at me seriously. There's one more thing. If you get any contact from him, texts, calls, emails, you don't reply. You forward them to me. Everything becomes evidence from now on. Got it, I said. She stood to leave, then hesitated. You know, I usually don't say this, but this case, it feels personal. Why's that? I asked. She hesitated, then said quietly, my mother was in something similar. The man drained her accounts, left her sick and broke. No one stepped in until it was too late. I became a lawyer because of her. She smiled faintly. So yeah, I'm not just taking your case, I'm taking hers back too. I sat there for a long time after she left, staring at the stack of papers between my hands. For the first time, this didn't feel like revenge. It felt like reclamation. When I got back to Lily's room, she was awake, eyes half closed from the meds. Everything okay, Dad? Better than okay, I said. I found us an ally who doesn't scare easy. She smiled weakly. You're really doing this, huh? Is incessant. I'm not doing it for you, I said. I'm doing it with you. We're done being polite. And that night, as the monitors beeped their tired rhythm, I finally felt something I hadn't felt since this began momentum. By the time Friday came, I was running on caffeine and fury disguised as focus. Rachel had moved fast, papers filed, accounts frozen, protective motions pending. I'd given her every document, every screenshot, every detail that proved Brandon wasn't just neglectful, but calculated. Still, I knew men like him don't go down quietly. They flail when the world stops revolving around them. And sure enough, the storm hit before noon. Rachel called first. You sitting down? She asked. Depends. Good news or bad? Both, she said. I just intercepted a loan application HELOC against Lily's house, filed yesterday. I gripped the phone tighter. He tried to mortgage her house? Technically, yes, she said, using an old authorization letter that appears to include your digital signature. The bank flagged it because the attached email metadata doesn't match the original sender. My jaw clenched. Let me guess he used the backup account access I gave him 2 years ago. Exactly, she said. He copied your original message and replaced one line, temporary emergency access, with permanent shared authority. Amateur forgery. But if the bank hadn't caught it, he'd be halfway through cashing another 6 figures. I closed my eyes, forcing a slow breath. Can you stop it? Already did, she said. But this gives us leverage. Intent to defraud, forgery, financial abuse. He's building our case for us. Do we tell Lily? Not yet, Rachel said. She needs peace, not panic. Let's hit him with everything at once when he tries to play husband of the year. As if on cue. My phone buzzed again. Brandon Hale. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because 20 minutes later, he showed up. Rachel had predicted it. Narcissists can't stand being ignored. They'll burn gas just to be seen. He marched into the hospital like a man arriving at a movie premiere, sunglasses indoors. Fake concern dripping from every gesture. Nurses glanced up, recognizing his voice from the previous commotion. Where is she? He demanded. I'm her husband. I have a right to see my wife. The nurse behind the counter, bless her, didn't flinch. You'll need to check in with security, sir. There are restrictions on visitors. Security? He scoffed. I'm not some stranger. I'm family. I stepped out from the corner before he could make a scene. No, Brandon, you were family. Big difference. He froze, caught between indignation and panic. Dan, look, man. This is all a misunderstanding. Which part? I asked calmly. The forged letter? The stolen money? The yacht? Or the part where you threatened a dying woman with custody court? His mouth opened, closed. That's not what. Who told you that? I did. Rachel's voice cut in. She appeared from the elevator, crisp and cold as a blade. Rachel Ortiz, attorney for Lily Carter. You might remember me from the restraining order you're about to violate. Brandon blinked, like someone had spoken a language he didn't recognize. Restraining? What? This is insane. She's my wife. Then maybe you should have acted like it. Rachel said. For now, you're trespassing on private medical property. Step away from the nurse's desk before security escorts you out. He turned to me for backup, the way manipulators do when their charm fails. Dan, be reasonable. You're letting some lawyer poison you against me. I smiled thinly. You poisoned yourself when you used my money to fund your midlife crisis. He stepped closer, voice dropping. You think you can just erase me? You can't erase a husband. You can't erase a father. I leaned in, voice quiet but firm. I don't have to erase you, Brandon. You're doing a great job of that yourself. Security arrived, 2 calm professionals who'd clearly seen worse. Rachel handed them the paperwork. Restraining order pending, emergency order in motion. He's not to contact or approach the patient. Brandon's face went red, then gray. You can't do this. I'll go to the press. Tell them you're manipulating a sick woman. You'll look like vultures. Rachel didn't blink. Go ahead. Just make sure your Instagram is still public when you do. Wouldn't want the yacht footage to get lost. He went silent. For a second, I thought he might swing at someone. But ego cowards never risk a hit when words might still work. He straightened his jacket, trying to rebuild the facade. You people are unbelievable. Lily will regret this. Rachel met his glare. She already does. When he finally left, escorted, humiliated, muttering legal threats. The hospital air felt lighter, almost breathable. Back in Lily's room, I told her only part of the truth. He tried something stupid, I said. We stopped it. She nodded slowly. He came here, didn't he? I didn't answer. She didn't need one. That night, I found Rachel in the hallway, typing on her tablet. You really don't flinch, I said. She shrugged. I've seen worse men crumble over less evidence. I studied her for a moment. Why do you do this work? Really? She hesitated, then looked up. Because my mother never had a Dan. She had a man like Brandon, and no one stepped in before he destroyed her. Undo. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't even professional. It was personal. For a second, neither of us said anything. Then she smiled faintly. So let's make this one count. Count on it, I said. As she walked away, I felt something shift. Not just in the case, but in the story itself. The power dynamic had finally flipped. Brandon's chaos had collided with structure and lost. I checked my phone before heading back to Lily's room. One new notification from the bank. Attempted access. Blocked from unauthorized user. I smiled to myself. The quiet kind of satisfaction that doesn't need witnesses. He could keep shouting about his rights, his pressure, his importance, but the system no longer recognized his password. By Monday morning, the internet had done what the courts hadn't yet turned Brandon Hale into a cautionary tale. Rachel's filings were still moving through the legal system, but social media had already handed down its verdict. It started small. A nurse posted on a local community forum about a man screaming at staff after being told his wife was in ICU. No names, no photos, just enough breadcrumbs for people to start digging. By noon, someone connected the dots to Brandon's public Instagram, where the yacht videos were still live. One screenshot turned into 20. Within hours, hashtags bloomed like weeds. Number champagne while she chemo. Number fake family man. Number justice for Lily. I didn't post anything myself. I didn't have to. The internet has a way of doing background checks with surgical precision. One user found his LinkedIn. Another unearthed screenshots of his motivational tweets about mental resilience. A woman from his firm commented, he called in sick the day of those yacht videos. And just like that, his mask cracked in public view. Rachel texted me, don't engage. Let him drown in his own PR. So I sat back and watched the digital tide roll in, slow, merciless, and fair in its own messy way. Meanwhile, Mrs. Whitaker stopped by the hospital again. She brought cookies for the kids and a small spiral notebook. I started writing things down when I noticed he wasn't around much, she said. handing it to me. Just in case. Her notes were meticulous dates, times, even license plate photos from nights when she'd seen his car parked at a downtown hotel. I didn't want to pry, she added softly, but something told me Lily might need this one day. I stared at the notebook like it was a miracle disguised in lined paper. You have no idea how helpful this is, I said. Oh, I think I do, she smiled. Men like him don't just vanish. They erase. Good thing some of us still keep receipts. Her phrasing made me laugh for the first time in days. The neighborhood had always seemed quiet, unassuming, but underneath, it had teeth. It remembered. That afternoon, Rachel called again. He tried going on the local news, she said, claimed we're manipulating Lily for money. The reporter asked about the yacht story before the interview even started. He walked out. Karma travels faster than press releases, I said. She laughed. And unlike defamation suits, karma doesn't need a signature. By evening, Brandon had deleted every social account he owned. Too late. The screenshots had already traveled everywhere that mattered. A blog picked up the story. Ohio father-in-law outs son-in-law's luxury lies while daughter fights cancer. The headline was crude, but the sentiment wasn't wrong. Lily was sitting up when I showed her the article. She read quietly, then whispered, "It's strange. I used to think justice meant courts and judges. Now it's just people finally believing the truth. Courts will catch up," I said. But sometimes, public reality gets there first. For the first time, she looked peaceful. "He can't touch me anymore," she said. "Not my life, not my story." I squeezed her hand. "He's already been replaced," I said. "By the people who show up when it matters. Everyone." Outside the hospital window, the city lights flickered like camera flashes, each one a small reminder that the world was finally watching the right person burn. 3 months later, the air in our house felt different, lighter somehow, like the walls had finally stopped holding their breath. Lily was home, pale but strong, her laughter slowly returning to the same rhythm it used to have when she was a kid. The chemo was over. The treatments were working, and the doctors dared to use a word I hadn't heard in years. Remission. We'd sold her old house in Dayton. Too many ghosts there. Too many rooms that still echoed with the kind of silence that follows betrayal. I helped her and the kids move into a smaller place closer to mine, a simple 2-story home with sunflowers out front and enough space for life to start over. That first weekend, we built a swing set in the backyard. Jack, who was 7 now, kept insisting the swings had to go higher than the moon. Emma painted the slide bright blue. Watching them laugh, I realized something I hadn't before. Revenge feels satisfying for a moment, but rebuilding, that's the real victory. Brandon was long gone. Rachel said he'd taken a job 2 states over after being encouraged to resign. The restraining order still stood, and every so often, his lawyer sent half-hearted requests for visitation, which Rachel shredded before they even reached us. "He's like a bad algorithm," she joked once. "Ignore long enough, and eventually, he stops showing up." The bank case ended quietly. The judge's statement was short and sharp. Pattern of financial manipulation consistent with intent to defraud. Brandon's access was terminated permanently, and Lily's accounts were restored. When the ruling came through, Rachel texted me just 2 words. "It's over." But the truth is, it wasn't just about him anymore. It was about what we learned about boundaries, about strength, about how silence isn't kindness when it costs your peace. One evening, I found Lily sitting on the porch steps, staring out at the kids chasing fireflies. She was holding the wooden jewelry box I'd carved years ago, the one I'd meant to give her that day I showed up in Los Angeles. She opened it, and inside was Martha's old ring, polished and gleaming again. "You still kept it," I said quietly. "Of course." She smiled. "I just didn't think I deserved it before." "Why not?" She turned the ring in her fingers. "Because I thought being strong meant staying quiet. You know, keeping the peace no matter how much it hurt. But strength isn't silence. It's saying enough before someone else decides it for you." I sat beside her. The kind of silence between us now that didn't need fixing. "Your mother would be proud," I said. She smiled. "I think she'd tell us to plant tomatoes before the season ends." We laughed, and for a second, Everything felt normal, ordinary in the best possible way. Rachel stopped by that weekend too, dropping off final paperwork. She was different now, less guarded, maybe even lighter. When I thanked her again, she shook her head. "Don't thank me, Dan. You did the hard part. You stood up. Tenbring." I told her what she'd told me months ago. Guilt is the leash abusers hold long after they leave the room. She grinned. "Glad you were listening." Before she left, she said something that stuck with me. Every case like this, it's not just about ending something. It's about teaching the next generation what not to accept. That night, I watched Lily tuck the kids into bed, Emma clutching her stuffed rabbit, Jack whispering about fireflies. It hit me. Then this was the legacy we were leaving behind. Not bitterness, not revenge, but clarity. Later, on the porch, I looked up at the sky, the same Midwest stars Martha used to love, scattered across the dark like tiny promises. Life had taken more from us than it ever should have, but it also gave us this: peace. Earned one hard boundary at a time. I took out my phone, scrolled past old messages, old anger, and deleted Brandon's name from my contacts. It wasn't revenge this time. It was closure. Tomorrow, I'd drive Lily to her follow-up appointment. Maybe stop for ice cream after. Maybe start living like people who finally remembered how. As the night air grew colder, I whispered the words that had become my quiet prayer. The storm passes. Families last. And for once, I believed it. It's strange how quiet life becomes after the chaos ends. No court filings, no phone alerts, no adrenaline holding you hostage. Just the sound of normal mornings, coffee brewing, the dog barking at mailmen, kids arguing about breakfast cereal. That's when you realize peace isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It just moves in quietly and waits to see if you'll notice. A year had passed since that awful spring. Lily was healthy now, really healthy. Her hair had grown back, shorter and wilder than before, like it was done hiding. The kids were thriving. Emma started playing piano, and Jack joined Little League. Every once in a while, I'd catch Lily watching them with this look, half joy, half disbelief, as if happiness still felt like borrowed time. We'd built something small but solid. Rachel helped us set up a trust fund for the kids, and I'd finally gone back to my woodworking shop. Making things again felt good, clean, honest, like resetting a compass. One afternoon, while sanding the edge of a cedar box, I thought about how every story, no matter how broken, leaves you with something worth keeping. For me, it wasn't just closure. It was clarity. I used to think forgiveness was about letting someone off the hook. Now I know it's about letting yourself off theirs. You can't heal while still holding the rope that tied you to the pain. Brandon's name hadn't been spoken in months. He'd faded into rumor, a lesson, not a presence. Rachel said he'd filed for bankruptcy, tried to start over somewhere in Florida under a new business name. I didn't care enough to ask which one. There's a freedom in indifference that feels a lot like victory. Lily came by the workshop that day, holding a small stack of mail. "You got another letter from the hospital foundation," she said. "They want to use your story in their campaign." "Our story," I corrected her. She smiled. "They want to highlight the importance of family support. How people step up when systems fail. Guess we're Exhibit A." She leaned against the doorway, watching me work. "You ever think about writing it down?" "What? The whole thing?" "Yeah. Not for them, for you. For me. For the kids, maybe. So they'll know how bad it got. But also how we came back." I thought about it for a long time after she left. The truth is, stories like ours don't end with villains being punished. They end when the survivors stop being defined by them. That's the part people forget. Revenge is only satisfying when it leads somewhere better. Later that evening, we had dinner on the porch. Martha's old swing still creaked in the corner, rebuilt from salvaged wood like everything else we'd managed to save. Lily brought out her laptop and played an old voicemail. It was from months before she got sick, her voice bright and casual. "Hey, Dad. Just checking in. Don't worry about me. I'm fine. Love you." I hadn't heard it since that day in Los Angeles. For a moment, my chest tightened the way it did when I thought she might not make it. But then she smiled and said, "Funny thing is, I really am fine now." "Yeah, I said. You are. The kids joined us, sticky-fingered from ice cream, laughing about something that probably didn't matter. But maybe that's what healing is, learning to love the things that don't matter because they mean everything. As the sun dipped behind the cornfields, Emma asked, Grandpa, what's the story you always tell about storms? I smiled. That storms don't last, I said. But families do. He's not a Claire. She nodded solemnly, then went back to her ice cream, already half melted. When the house finally went quiet that night, I sat by the window and opened my notebook, the same one I'd used to track every transaction, every betrayal. But this time, I started a new page. At the top, I wrote, What we keep, and beneath it, we keep the lessons, we keep the laughter, we keep the love that survived the fire. Everything else we let go. Then I closed the notebook, turned off the light, and let the quiet do the rest. Looking back now, I realized the real battle was never about money, property, or even revenge. It was about reclaiming mental space, the kind that gets eaten away piece by piece when you keep tolerating what breaks you. For years, I mistook endurance for strength. I thought that staying calm, forgiving too fast, and avoiding conflict made me the better person. But what I've learned sometimes the hard way is that silence doesn't make you noble, it just makes you easier to exploit. The biggest lesson I learned is that no is a complete sentence. You don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your peace. You don't have to justify your boundaries to people who only notice them when they can't cross them anymore. Watching Lily rebuild her life taught me something else. Healing isn't loud or cinematic. It happens in the small, boring moments, morning coffee, school pickups, grocery runs, when you finally stop living in reaction to someone else's chaos. That's when you know you've truly won. If you're listening to this and you're stuck in that same loop, apologizing for wanting peace, explaining why you deserve respect, let me tell you what I wish someone had told me. You don't need permission to start over. You just need to stop waiting for the person who hurt you to understand what they did. They won't. But you will. So, tell me AITA for cutting someone out completely when they crossed the line too many times? Or have you ever had to deal with a toxic family member who drained your energy and called it love? I'd really like to hear how you handled it. Drop your story in the comments, because maybe your boundary will be someone else's survival guide.